You make this? This is awesome.
Aurelio made it. And it is
Wow,
awesome.
Aurelio. Thank you. This is
I was
amazing.
playing around with that last night. So
I
this
made
is a proof
one
of
like
concept.
that, but this is way neater than the one I made.
Oh, this is so helpful.
It's really nice. So yeah, now we have the glyphs and the hieratic side by side. I have the translation just here in case we need it.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
Can you
it makes it
put
quite
this
clear.
somewhere too, so I can print this off too? That would be
Aurelio,
awesome.
that's up to you.
No, of course, absolutely. Let's share it. And I was thinking if you guys like that format, I only did the first page. Like I said, proof of concept. What we did before in the Coptic classes, we'd take turns. Everybody would do a few lines and basically transcribe them and put them into an Excel file so that by the end of the course, we had a complete document. Maybe we can do something similar. I mean, this took maybe about, for 3 pages, took about 45 minutes. So
We could do a Google Doc. I mean, this would
Yeah.
work in a Google Doc. You just put the images in.
that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we could build it as a group if you like. Because for
I
one
think-
person, yeah, it's a lot of work. But if you do it as a team effort,
Yeah.
I made a JSesh, or what do you call that? Yeah, JSesh file of it, of the first 6 lines.
Nice.
Awesome.
oh, nice.
That's really cool.
Should I show it to you?
Yeah, please
Yeah.
do. That actually, so Aurelio and I were talking about the like copyright issues because those are Gardner's glyphs that he transcribed. And if we have JSesh
So
and we
nice.
make our own translation,
Can you
Then
see
it-
this?
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, it looks great.
Very
This
nice.
looks nice. Yeah, I like it. Cool.
In JSesh, you can swap the orientation just in the settings from right to left, the left to right, if you wanted to.
That would be
Yeah,
good.
the best way to do it, I'll tell you on a little trick on JSesh. If you switch the orientation in JSesh and then try to export it, it will export it retrograde for some reason. So all the signs will be backwards, but the order of the text won't be backwards. I don't know, it's just a bug, I think. But so it's best in JSesh to do it first, left to right, then export it, and then just flip if you have like a vector image, just flip it in like Adobe Illustrator or
Yeah.
whatever. That's the way I always do
Okay.
everything.
Cool.
Yeah, that prevents that bug from getting in the way. And it's perfectly easy once you export it and put it in something else. You know, it takes no time at all to just flip the images. If you have like a big text, you could just grab them all at once and just mirror them. So yeah, so we can do something like that. I think the first step there is I will create a Google Doc in the hieratic folder, Aurelio. And or wait, so
That's
you
good.
where did you make this in Microsoft Word?
PowerPoint seemed the
PowerPoint.
easiest. And the trick I worked out, the first 10 minutes took me to figure out what the best way of doing that is without losing resolution on the picture. So the way I did it was I took our publicly available high resolution photographs from the official webpage, Just a BD. Then took basically like a snippet copy of that, and then you can use the crop function in PowerPoint to basically take
I
that one
see.
picture and get one line at a time. And the nice thing is, imagine you split that into like, I don't know, 10 chunks or something. When you're in that cropping functionality, the underlying photo is still there, and you can just basically move up by a line. So you don't have to go like take a rectangle, copy it over. No, you snag the photo once basically, then you make copies of that photo, cut it down to the size of one line, and then just open each copy and move it up one line. You see what I'm trying to say? And then just basically get out of cropping mode. And if you do it that way, it's actually really fast. The only part that was a bit tricky was that some lines are kind of slanting, diagonal. And that's why I split it into left and right, so they sort of line up and it doesn't become that odd shape that has half of the next line in it. So that took a bit more work, but that's probably actually overkill for studying document. I was playing with it to see what can and cannot be done.
Well, I mean,
work with hieroglyphic text. I guess it won't unless we use the Unicode glyphs, like to do transliteration.
I'm sorry, Ralph, I missed the
barely
first part
hear
of
you.
that.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Very
can hear
soft.
that,
I
Ralph.
was asking Aurelio if we can use his Ruby trick to annotate the words in transcription, but I think it won't work with the images. like you used to do for the Coptic. That was you, right? That would, with the Coptic books, you would write glosses and would using the Ruby text. Nobody knows what I'm talking about.
Nope. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No.
There's the Japanese thing where for school kids you can write the hiragana above the kanji to explain.
Oh! You're talking about furigana. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I couldn't hear you, unfortunately, though. You're super soft. But when you said Japanese, I thought I know what you're talking about. The furigana thing that I did for Coptic
Yeah, the
ones.
furigana thing. Sorry, I think of it as Ruby because that's what the HTML markup's called. But I was just wondering if we could use that, but I think we can't because it's images, right? It has to go over text.
Aurelio, you're muted.
No, you're muted, my friend.
Now I'm muted. Okay, great. No, when you said furigana, when you said Japanese, I thought, oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, that only works with text, unfortunately. The only way you could simulate that if you wanted to, but that gets really involved, you could do the whole thing in Excel and then basically reserve a line in Excel for the furigana on top. But I don't know. It's a bit complicated, honestly.
But the Ruby thing is HTML anyways, right? So we couldn't do that in a collaborative system like Google Docs.
Google Docs may support furigana. I don't know. LibreOffice does.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, that would make sense if it did.
Okay, so right now I'm looking at if we have the JSesh images, and we can all contribute to like transcribing things in JSesh, and then we have I'm looking at the Chester Beatty website right now, and everything is shared with a CC by NC license, which means that the Creative Commons license, you have to cite your source, and things can only be used for non-commercial projects. So it looks like, from what I can see, if we do our own transcription collaboratively and put all this together in like a Google Doc, we could actually publish this as an academic publication, as like a collaborative thing. I think it would be quite useful, actually.
It would be very useful as a teaching tool.
Yeah, and as a study tool, as a teaching tool, just to have it out there. I mean, I think so. I used to make these in my Egyptian reading classes all the time. I would make my own version of the text with like interlinear and my own notes, and then I think at that time I would print them out and take them to class, and then take notes in class, and then go and incorporate my notes. I never really considered putting any of those things out there. It just never really even occurred to me. But I would guess that everyone who studies this script and this language needs these things, or even makes these things every single time. So I think it's not really a thing that you see a lot of, but this could be the first one. We can just put it out there, and just see if people find it useful. Yeah, that could be really cool.
Great idea.
That's awesome.
We could get the ball rolling, and maybe other people will make more of these things. They are incredibly useful.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't have to make them all ourselves, which is kind of how all of this stuff works. Like, I mean, it started with making the ancient Egyptian subreddit, where I was just like, oh, I'm just answering the same question every time I see it on Reddit. I should just make a place where you're meant to go ask this question and the answer is already in there. Or where there are enough like interested people participating that it doesn't have to be me answering the question every single time, because you could easily do that full time if you set out to. People are asking these questions over and over and over. I see a similar thing here, where if we like put out one of these texts from our classes, and the YouTube videos are online and everything, that can get the ball rolling, right? Where other people are like, oh, this is a useful thing, I should make one of these for the text that I'm studying. And then you don't have to do all the work single-handedly. You just have a community of people participating in a larger project. That would be awesome. That'd be so great.
Indeed. Why don't we just do it?
Yeah, I think we do it.
By the way, the thing that Ralph mentioned, I can share it real quick if you want to, for those who are not so familiar with it.
Please.
Yeah, I'd love to see what you guys are talking about.
Should be up on the screen now. So that's for Coptic.
Awesome. Oh, nice.
So that's typical for Chinese or Japanese.
Right?
Yes, that's an office. And the way you do it, basically, there's a function in there. Hang on.
This is so cool.
You're muted, Aurelio.
I have some background noise, so that's why I put myself on mute, but that doesn't help. So basically what you do is you can either for a whole word as a group, type in you normally use it for pronunciation annotation, but you could also do it like I do it to put meanings in there, basically. Yeah, and it's a really useful tool. I just don't know if that's available in Google anything. I think it may not. And I'm not sure if it ports over. But yeah, that's what Ralph was talking about. I love that feature for Chinese and Japanese, or for Coptic, for anything actually that you can type.
Yeah.
So is this a macro you made in Office then, or
No,
is
this
it like a
is in
built-in
Word.
feature?
Standard functionality. It's in there. In the
Wow.
I'm not sure if you need to enable it under options or something, but that comes with every copy of Word. Phonetic guide or Ruby text, or it goes by different names.
Either way, I think it would be quite easy to Google, enable Ruby text. As long as you know that term, it should be easy enough to figure it out.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I guess you could do something potentially similar in a Google Doc if you had like multiple rows of a table. I don't know.
Yeah, that's where it starts getting tricky. Once you start using tables, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop showing off. Here we go.
It's really cool though. What was that text?
Hilaria. It was our Gnostic reading group text from previous one before Thunder Perfect Mind.
So many things to read, so little time.
I know. I mean, this is like I have things like every day of the week at this point, and they're all like reading things, and it's like it's amazing. It's so good. I don't know why nobody ever thought of doing this before, because I love reading ancient Egyptian texts, and I've just basically created a world in which people come hang out with me and read ancient Egyptian texts. So there you go. Yeah, so that was our in the Gnostic reading group, which is on Fridays at 8 p.m. CET, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So anybody who would like to just shoot me an email so that I have a reminder for after this to add you, and I can just add you to the invite. You're welcome to come join. We're finishing Thunder Perfect Mind right now, and then we're currently discussing what we're going to read next. There are a few options, it seems. So we just read Coptic texts and discuss them. Life of Onufrius is one of them. It's a sort of fantastic like biography or hagiography of Saint Onufrius, who in this story, it's a Coptic story. I think originally composed in Coptic, so that's kind of cool. It's not like a translation of a Greek text. This future saint Onufrius just kind of journeys out into the desert and like meets another like holy man living out in the desert, and some magical mystical things happen. It's a really neat text. It's probably one of the most narrative Coptic texts I found, where it could be like, you could imagine reading it for pleasure. It's not the best story I've ever read, but compared to a lot of the things we read in Coptic, where it's like very esoteric, like religion, philosophy, this one actually does have like a through line, and someone's going somewhere and interacts with other people, and there's dialogue and all that good stuff. So that was my suggestion. Yesterday, I think 2 people in the group made different suggestions. There was something about there's like a dialogue between Horus and Isis, which I've never read. It sounded fantastic.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, yeah.
It was a magical papyri. It's the first 2 things in that collection of Zauber text, Coptic or Zauber text. And because I was sort of like, I want to find Coptic stuff that's Egyptian rather than Christian. So and that's sort of what I came up with. It. So it's stuff that's talking about the Coptic as the part of the Egyptian cultural sphere rather than the Christian. Yeah, so those are interesting. That was one possibility, but then I think the other Christian and Mustafa were opting for like letters or like
documentary.
daily, yeah, documentary kind of stuff. That would be cool too. I mean, anything is good, really. So any of those things would be great.
So I've never seen this thing before. I'm looking for it right now. Krop is the author?
Yeah. It's in
Okay.
3 volumes. The first volume has the texts. I think the second volume's like notes, and then the third is the facsimiles of the papyri.
Let me just share a screen real quick, and we'll
Oh,
I'll just
Christian,
confirm
check
this with you.
your. Oh, okay.
Oops. Here. Sotomejor efrime. Sotomejor f ashahom. This is a poem.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh man, this is cool.
You
And
should put that in the advanced Discord.
I found
It's
a
really
few
cool.
papers about these texts also, which I have PDFs of that I could share too. Yeah,
Hey,
so I
Christian,
mean,
quick
that's
question.
one.
Mustafa's in the advanced group, right?
He is, yeah.
Okay, someone just left
Please,
the link. I'll send it to him. Okay.
okay, please send him the link. I didn't get any message from him, but yeah. Oh, he did message me. I just didn't see it. He says he's stuck on the intro screen. Let me send him another invite real quick. Make sure he gets in here. Copy invite link.
Can you share the link to that?
To what?
To that poem,
Yeah, absolutely.
that Coptic text.
I can also, I didn't know what you were asking about, but if you were asking about, I thought you might be asking about the reading group. I can also share a link to that, which would work fine. But I also, that started as a smaller group. So it's actually, I have like a calendar event set up with the links and everything. And I have everyone who participates is invited. So if you send me an email saying that you'd like to participate, I can put you on the invite list as well, but I'll go ahead and put the Zoom link in here. Certainly welcome to come join. So that's the Coptic Gnostic Reading Group, 8 p.m. CET on Fridays. So many groups. I just keep making more groups. Every time I want to read something else, I'm just like, hey, my nerds, let's make another group. It's working. I don't know. It's great. We're going to end up with like our own like homemade university by the time this thing is done. I mean, maybe we're dead by the time this thing is done. Who knows? That'd be kind of cool. Maybe it just kind of carries on. We'll see. Anyway, okay. So Aurelio, I guess you and I should chat about getting that set up on Google Docs so that everybody can add things in.
That's good.
I mean, the way you're talking about cropping these things, I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know how well it's going to transfer into a Google Doc. But if it works, I mean, that could be a workflow where you like generate the PDF and then export the images from the PDF and then put them in or something. I don't really know how that's going to go, but we'll figure it out. It doesn't have to be perfect either. You know, we'll find a way to make it work.
Right. It's really not as much work as it looks once you figure out how you want to go about it.
I've done a bunch of these and it's just a time suck because it just takes time to go, you know, grab each thing, put it in. Typing up a hieroglyphic text doesn't take that long, but it does, you know, you got to sit down and do it. It takes hours. Not that much in the grand scheme of things, but certainly takes time. I think if we're dividing up the work, and then if we do put it out there, everyone who's participated in some way in putting it together, we'll just have like a list of authors that's a page long. Yeah, put it out somewhere. That'd be pretty cool. Okay, so last week we read this first line. Actually, Aaron read this first line, and I would say absolutely crushed it.
Cheers.
We had Pa Weput Hor Hena Sute Shatau Hepri Eat.
Can we actually go over the first slide again? Because Aaron
Good
crushed
idea.
it so quickly, I didn't get all of it.
You're a victim of your own success, Aaron.
Aaron, you're not getting out of this one.
Are we, so we're gonna leave off the Kepler at the beginning because it's unclear? Is that the?
Oh, I guess this transcription doesn't have it. Aurelio, you've replaced the incorrect word in Gardner's transcription with the other one from the Italian website.
Oh,
Correct,
okay.
correct. And I forgot to put the Kepler in there, but yeah, I think that one is safe, isn't it?
Yeah, I
From
think
other stories?
the Kepler's pretty
Gardner
safe.
himself corrects that too in the like a couple of pages before before where it starts. He corrects that there's a core agenda section
I missed
where he
it.
himself says that it's Webboot.
Mm,
Oh, wow.
nice.
Okay.
Okay, our transcription can incorporate all of that information.
So how do we translate Webboot, the word Webboot?
Well, how do we translate that? Mission,
Opening.
errand. Oh, opening. It's interesting. I didn't really think of the connection to web, the verb, but it definitely is like nominal form of that verb.
That's probably the title of the first beginning of the papyrus.
Huh. I mean, it could be,
Because
except it does have a finite verb if that heper is there.
Heper pa Webboot.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
some reason,
Simpson uses adjudication, which seems like fairly far from Webboot, but
Does to me too.
For some reason, I wrote judgment down on my notes here. Where did that come from? That may have been from Lesko. Let's see what he says. Just going to Lesko here.
For Webboot in his dictionary or for this text?
For Webboot and his. Oh, I didn't know you can do text lookup for Lesko. I was just going to look for Webboot.
This dictionary is weirdly hard to use.
Yeah, it's unfortunately completely not digital. So let's see, Webwood, what does it say? Work, business, job, commission, matter, chore, mission, errand, command, assignment.
Matter makes sense because it's the matter of
the matter before the court of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, so then Keper, Pa, Waput, it came to pass the matter, Her, Horus, Hana, Seta, of Horus and Seth, Shatau, mysterious, secret, hidden. Is this better speed, everybody?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome.
I guess I should be highlighting what you're saying as you're saying it.
That would probably help too. So you transcribed Chateau, but I don't know, Kristen, yesterday or last week you were saying you don't like writing the W for the plural strokes.
But this does have a W. In this case, I would write Chateau.
Oh, because the W is actually written there.
Yeah.
It seems like half the time the W's are extra in late Egyptian.
I know. I agree. I was reading through that Italian transliteration that Aurelio showed us last week, and I would say 75% of the W's are not written into that transliteration.
It's like, very common actually to leave out the late Egyptian W's.
Why do we even have W's anymore? Come on, it makes me crazy.
Yeah, the W at the end of ESET threw me off.
Yes.
These two. It's probably protecting the T. There's a final vowel that's still being pronounced in the W. Maybe represents just like a final short vowel. We don't really know for sure what's going on phonetically, but they proliferate in late Egyptian. I tend to transcribe them because they are there. But then you also have to remember, if you're looking at a transcription of a late Egyptian text, you're not reading it in exactly the same way that you would a transcription of a Middle Egyptian text. It's, you're transcribing two different scripts, so the transcription is going to work a little differently too.
Okay. Chateau, okay.
Okay, next word, Kepri, forms. A'ait, great, And then, oh God, what was this one? Weru? Was this
Yeah,
Weru or Seru?
I
Enzo
can't
has
remember
Weru
which one's which.
Weru,
What?
but
Weru.
And I had
Zamsu,
Serweru. Yeah.
but it's some kind of pun with like two words that are written almost identically. But
Yeah, it's really anybody's guess.
But that
like
strikes me as
lord
odd.
princes, great guys and great guys.
yeah,
Lords
but one
Yeah,
of them's
the
ever so slightly
The
more
mic-
senior because they're older. Like,
Oh, that's a good point.
question though, sorry to barge in there, but I question that Weru a bit because
Mhm.
it happens in multiple lines. I think on in that little set of lines it happens 3 times. It's always written the same. First, first the one glyph with the man standing up, and then the other one slightly hunched over.
Yeah.
So if it was really supposed to be Weru, I think he would have used the same glyph. You have this thing in Chinese where you sometimes switch character shape, or often switch character shape just because you don't want duplication, but I don't think Egyptian does that. They like to show off, but they don't. I think normally if it's the same sign, they would write the same sign. And
Yeah,
not,
this is clearly intentional. Clearly intentional.
You think one is the noun and one is the adjective, so it's like, you know, like it's translated great prince.
Yeah, it could
could
be.
be.
But in
That
the
could
first
be.
writing, they both have person determinatives. Like, I wouldn't expect the adjective to have a person determinative. But
Well, and they're talking about multiple people because this is the hearing before all the gods. So it's not one, it's not one prince. I think they mean before all the high and mighty dignitaries. So
Yeah.
I think it is meant to be these guys and these guys.
well, is it referring to the dignitaries or is it referring to Horus and Seth? Like, we haven't had a preposition here, so I thought it was still an apposition with.
Well, it's both.
Seth
It's
Hanoch.
the greatest of the great dignitaries.
Okay, so you think it is a superlative?
I think it's meant to be understood that way. I mean, superlative, Egyptian doesn't really have superlatives. There are things we translate as superlatives.
Yeah.
There are things where the construction is the same, where it's like, is this that thing? Well, that thing isn't really that thing. So we're just translating it that way. So yes and no.
Mightiest.
So greatest among the lords and princes, or it doesn't say among, obviously, but I mean, for the sake of comprehending it in English, it's saying like they are the greatest of this grouping of people, of the lords and princes, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And Kepri, Kepri Kepri. So like an I dot, right?
Yeah.
That's how you put that.
Christian said last week that was a relative.
It's not. It's
So like
participle.
who,
Oh, it's
so like
relative.
who, greatest of the lords and princes, whoever existed.
It's a relative participle.
It's a participle that we translate with a relative clause.
Relative.
I mean, might
It
as well.
attaches to the verb, right?
That's funny.
The E,
Christian, it attaches to the verb.
the pathetic yod attaches to the verb. The thing itself is it modifies a noun. So that, you know, a relative verb would be if the thing that it modifies is the object of the verb. It's a participle if the thing it modifies is the subject of the verb. And that's so because
That's so Indo-European, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're formally identical. It's really you know, reading it through the lens of, Eurocentric scholarship.
Okay.
But according to late Egyptian grammars, this is a participle, not a relative verb. So yeah.
Okay.
And we'll see enough examples.
And we have the plural strokes on the end of E Kepri because it's talking about two people.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's talking about the Lord.
The lords of
Lord, greatest of the lords and princes who ever existed. So the ever existed would be all lords and princes.
Yeah, it's plural. It's just multiple people. All the people who
I
ever
think
existed.
the prefix yod, etymological yod, is for interjection or something like to sound someone.
It can be. You mean like the vocative particle?
Evocative, yeah.
Like, oh, it happened or something like that.
It
actually,
it is
as
like
I remember, this means this Khepri, it is form, something like not existing. creating something.
So
It
who
is
were
form
formed,
of-
in which case it's a relative.
Yeah, maybe.
If you choose to read it as a transitive verb, it becomes relative. I mean, it's ihepri. You know, like it's just that.
Simple enough.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just what you say.
I don't know if we need to overcomplicate it, but we are going to be looking at other late Egyptian grammars, and you know, these things don't exist in a vacuum. I mean, that's one of the real troubles of translating Egyptian, is that it has such a scholarly history that you have this kind of this backwards compatibility problem, where however you choose to analyze things, you inevitably have to relate that to how someone else has analyzed them before. So you kind of never get rid of. It would be really nice if we just said it's prothetic yod verb, and that does this thing where it now modifies a noun in some way, and just left it at that without like imposing any sort of you know, like Eurocentric linguistic view on it or something. Just let it be what it is. But we also have to engage with the studies that have existed before, so you kind of have to know.
And for those of us that aren't linguists, prothetic means
it's stuck on the front.
Okay, attached.
So it's from pros, I guess, and tithemi, to place, placed in front.
Very nice.
Oh, thank you, Ralph.
So on the hieratic there, the scroll determinative for Kepri, like it's just that little squiggle there.
Yeah, it looks kind
is
of like
that only
a Z.
half of it, or is that the whole thing?
That's it.
Okay,
that's the whole thing.
If you know, it's questionable how much is there or missing here, but it could easily be just that with nothing missing. That's it. That's all we get. But you know what it is. You know.
It's Kepri, yeah.
Actually, if you look in the word mysterious, shita, at the end of it,
it's very similar there, yeah.
Exactly. You have the little X, so to say, and then the Z underneath. That's our book roll.
The Z, it looks a little bit more like a line with a hook on top, but I guess it's probably one stroke for that.
I think it's one stroke.
Random question about preservation of the ink too. Oh, that was something that came up. So I've tried with both markers and I've tried with like dip pins. How did the scribes maintain a consistency of ink placement, I guess is what I'm wondering. Because you can see that on some of these lines, and it could just be with historical fading, right? Some of them are much lighter than others. So like this yod before the seated god is pretty dark, whereas these other lines are, sorry, I'm putting my hand over my camera.
Oh, do I have something for you?
But anyway, I wondered,
are we thinking of the same thing?
It's like, how on earth did they manage that skill of just like making it consistent throughout? It's like, wow, the masterfulness that they must have had was just amazing. And I guess I'm just wondering on these lines where it's lighter, what happened there? Is that just fading over time, or is that maybe
running out of ink
behind other things? Yeah,
running out of ink.
It's running out of ink. This is where he dipped his pen. This is where the scribe dipped his pen.
There's a great book you like. It's on the Metropolitan Museum webpage. Of course, it's by our favorite Alan again. It's called the Hekanacht Letters, and it's available for free download. And what he does in there, like halfway through the book, I guess, Christian, you may know actually the story behind it, because you've probably seen it. Who did the work? Somebody must have counted basically how many strokes he went before he had to redip his ink. And it can be anywhere. Wait, that's a Rush, right? These are Rush pens, the older ones. Always mix up Rush and Reed. So sometimes it's after 7 strokes, and sometimes it's it goes as far as like 22 strokes before he has to redip. And you can actually do that to basically see, was that written? You can make some kind of inference, like, was he copying or was he thinking it up as he was writing, based on the frequency of how often he would dip his pen. So some really cool stuff in there.
Wow.
You might like it.
Neat.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. Sounds awesome.
Trying to find the, oh, I think I misspelled it. That's why. Wait, how's it spelled? Heck, oh, with a Q, duh.
Christian, were you involved in this, or was that before or after?
No, that
I
was
mean,
before my
somebody must.
time.
Hmm.
No, he did this. He
Oh,
did
he
this.
counted
I think,
himself?
yeah, he did it while he was a curator at the Met for the Egyptian collection.
Oh, I
So
see.
he put all this together and published this.
Gotcha.
Where's the where's
It's
the
right there
PDF?
on the page.
This
I think so, yeah. Let me see. The one you had at first, I think.
the Met Museum
Yeah.
entry.
And
Oh,
there's
this
a
has
download
PDF.
PDF. There you go. Mhm.
Yeah, okay, I'll put this in the chat then.
That's a really nice resource. The handwriting is, I mean, maybe for those who haven't looked at it yet, I don't want to take up too much time, but essentially it's a set of letters that were found in the rubble that was used to fill in a tomb. So this was never meant to be preserved for eternity. Essentially, it's really just a lucky find. You basically have the letters of a guy who's writing back to his, well, his estate, essentially, to his number one caretaker there, essentially admonishing them, like, sell this for that much, make sure you get this money, go and ask for this and that, stop bothering my wife, she really doesn't deserve that, and on and on. I think there's some letters in there also from his wife. It's basically this mixture, very intimate look at yeah, what was going on in somebody's life 4,200 years ago or so.
4,000, yeah, Middle
That's
Kingdom.
so cool.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned the word money, because this is one of my go-to examples for arguing that, like, yes, Egypt had like a market economy, just like every other place did. It's like I won't go into it again, but it's like a long-running like misapprehension in Egyptology that there was like no commerce going on, that it was like a state-controlled economy. And like the Heckenocht letters are the perfect disproof of that. Like we got people talking about like the produce of their estate. He's not royal. He's not really affiliated with like any sort of royal production whatsoever. It's just his own estate. They're buying and selling things. They're buying and selling land for quantities of metals. It's just like the perfect disproof of that whole idea that there was like no market economy in ancient Egypt. And of course, there's like piles and piles of things that show that, but Heckenocht is just so clear cut, like Middle Kingdom, non-royal person just engaged in commerce over and over, and you know, writing it in the letters as though it's just a normal part of his daily business. It's super cool. Anyway, yeah, the letters are awesome. They show all kinds of things. I mean, it's an amazing window into like everyday life. I mean, Heckenocht was like a wealthy person. He was a landowner, but he's not royal. It's yeah, it's really cool. So go check that out. Links in the chat.
There's some tantalizing things in there as well. In the first letter, he's basically telling his people that, hey, right now is not the time to slack off. Times are hard. You didn't want to come with me on the southward trip, so do your job at home, basically. He's pretty stern in his admonishing his people. And he says, and they're eating people over here.
Oh,
So he's basically saying it's getting pretty
Yeah.
bad and they're eating people. It's just like thrown in between. Make sure that you get that basically that profit on the piece of land that we loaned out, and send
Yeah.
regards to my mother-in-law. And then in between is that sentence. You go like, wow, what's going on here? Is this just a figure of speech? Is he just basically trying to say times are tough and you better stick with the program? Or is this really one of those famine situations that we have described in other in other texts? So it's really interesting, and he suddenly throws that at you, but it doesn't get explained anymore. He just goes on in his story. So, but yeah, no, it's a great find.
Yeah, it's really neat. Yeah, I don't know, eating people. I mean, who knows? I'm not even going to speculate. I'm not going to speculate.
I downloaded a dissertation from Cambridge where somebody, I think, did an osteological study of bones around a certain area. I forget the context, but it was in relation to one of the lines of eating people in Egypt. And anyway, so I haven't looked at it yet, but someday.
I mean, if you found evidence for like tool marks on the bones, especially on like thigh bones and things. It's a pretty dead giveaway. I mean, you'd never be completely sure, but like that's, yeah. I mean, we know that in some cases it's really debatable because like we don't really know how people treated their dead. So it's like seeing tool marks on bones doesn't necessarily indicate cannibalism, but in Egypt it would, because they didn't routinely dismember their dead for burial. So yeah, tool marks on bones, if anyone finds it, that means they're eating people. Probably happened. Every human population in the world has defenses against prion diseases caused by eating human brains. Everyone, all of us, we all inherited like genetic defenses against diseases that you can get from cannibalism, which means that all of our ancestors were at some point cannibals, everyone on Earth. So yeah,
interesting. Wow.
That's a good thing to pull out if you're like hanging out and like smoking pot with your buddies. Like, everyone's about to have a really weird time. Did you know?
Oh boy.
Fun facts. Anyway, okay. So we have another sentence to do, which we haven't got to yet. We have 15 minutes left.
Sorry to get us so off topic.
Oh no, we talk about cool stuff. Aurelio, you're the next one in. Oh, Chris, would you like to read?
Sure, unless Aurelio is going to go.
Either way,
I
it's
can
fine.
continue the
Chris, you take
tradition
it.
of the. Okay, I'll continue the tradition of the person doing their first class reading reading the text.
That sounds good.
Okay, so after the Hepri, I have Isetu, which I assumed is just Iset. And then Irwa Nemes. And I assumed that the like head on a stick is just a determinative there.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Hemez. And this one, so it looks a lot like Mebah, but I wasn't sure if that's a T under the penis, because in that case, I feel like it would be Met.
Oh, interesting.
That is interesting.
If it's Met, it's the word imta, like I don't know how to translate the word imta, but like empamto in Coptic is like in my vicinity, or like adjacent to me. Interesting. I think it's probably imbah because it's the equivalent of like in Nahrem, like in the presence of someone of an elite status, just because of what comes next. It's kind of a factor of transcription. I mean, we don't have a clear, I guess that would be what we're identifying as a T, but it's not totally clear.
I think we see this word throughout, and I think the next time we see it, it does not have that mark there.
Okay.
I think most likely it's imbah, despite this confusing mark.
Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, it made sense as Mbah because especially with what comes after. So after that, I've got Neb, Rejer, Her, Weha, Ta, Yaut, Neiti, Isir, Nefer, Hai.
Good, yeah.
So the translation would be Isa to ear. Is the ear there? Is that like so I would be used to seeing, I guess, like E to F or something. Is the wa the like subject of that?
I mean, the wa is definitely the subject. I read it as the ear that's like as for, just pointing someone out. It could also be a writing of EU. I don't know. Possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then so something like one or A, I'm not super familiar with. I mean, I'm not familiar with late Egyptian, but I'm assuming that could be like an indefinite article.
It can, yeah.
Okay. So then a child sat or was sitting. I'm not sure what verb form that is. in the presence of the Lord of everything,
Mhm.
upon, what is weha?
It's to ask for, seek, to want. Wosh in
Oh,
Coptic.
okay. Oh, is this like like hair infinitive
It
construction?
is. Yeah, the pseudo-verbal.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So I guess while seeking
Mhm.
the office of his father Osiris.
Not his father, interestingly.
Oh, right, of the father Osiris.
Yeah. The his is just not there. You know, this F is always confusing. Yeah, of his father Osiris. Interestingly, I noticed this. You see Osiris spelled a bunch of different ways, but normally it's the like us ear. Normally it has the I.
Yeah.
We have the
Right.
ray here. It seems to be writing phonetically usire. Maybe, I don't know.
Ah, yeah.
Is this Asa?
So logical.
I was
Yeah.
wondering about that. Yeah, that makes some sense now.
And it kind
was
of
missing
looks
the
like
ear.
the normal spelling. Yeah, it is missing the ear. And that ear is like, you know, it can be ire because the verb is ire. So you have like us ire, and that gives you usire, Osiris. But this looks to be like Asire, Isis son. But then it sounds phonetically really close to usire. So I don't know, just something seems interesting to me.
Cool.
It seems like there must be some religious significance to writing it with the sun, but like, aren't they all about the symbolism?
They are all about that symbolism. What would it be? So like throne of Re?
Something like that, yeah. Although Ray is definitely not the king in this story, it's very strange.
Yeah. I don't know. Good thought though.
Or Ray is king of the sky, and they're talking about sort of king of the world in some sense, because Horus ends up associated with like the human kingship, right?
Right. And then Osiris is still king in the Duat, and like Osiris and Re are linked. They're kind of two sides of the same coin in the Duat. Like Re is Osiris in the Duat. There's that connection.
Right. He goes down and becomes reborn, and that's how the sun can rise again the next day through the recreation of Osiris after death.
Yeah. So there's a connection there. It's a bit abstract, but like there are funerary texts that specifically mention like Re is Osiris in Te and Osiris is Re in wherever in the horizon or whatever. So maybe there's a connection there. Don't really know. I mean, it's not that unusual a spelling, but it is unusual enough to be worth thinking about, like why it's written that way. Anyway, Chris.
Oh, yeah, and then the last bit is Nefer Ha'i. So I guess Nefer Ha would be like one with a good appearance, but I'm not sure what the double yod does to that.
It's the plural. So you see this a lot in late Egyptian. So whether or not the plural was always just a consonantal W added to the end of the word is kind of an open question. You know, we're kind of oversimplifying by saying that in like introductory Middle Egyptian grammars. But what we definitely see in late Egyptian is there's always a fluidity between W and Yod. It exists in other Afroasiatic languages too. Those two sounds can kind of trade places with one another quite frequently. And you'll see a lot of late Egyptian plurals that are actually written with the E. And then there are plenty of Coptic plurals that show the presence of that E phonetically. So it's just, you can think of like, if you learned in Middle Egyptian that the way you make a plural is you put a W on the end, we'll now add to that the fact that W and Y are very tightly linked to one another phonetically. Or I don't even, what is even the word phonetically is the wrong word, phonologically, whatever. They have this really tight connection. So now put a W on the end can also mean put a Y on the end because there's that connection. So yeah, it's just a plural. Beautiful of appearances.
Okay.
The one whose appearances are beautiful.
Okay.
Which also connects him to Ray again.
Yes. And all these birds on standards, they're all determinatives. None of them are pronouns. Like it's not beautiful of his appearances.
So I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting, I think that we should treat that as a hypothesis and test it as we read this text, because I don't know the answer. I never learned them that way, but having heard it, aside from never having heard it that way before, I have no objection to that. There's no reason to think that that can't be so. And then there are even places here where like we really want pronoun here. The office
Yeah, we
of
really want a
father.
pronoun there. And it works with Jareth.
And at the end
Yeah,
there, his son too. And then starting the next sentence.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is in a direct genitive. It continues on to the next line.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
son
Oh,
of-
son of. Yeah. Okay. That
Oh,
would
Peter?
be great.
So you wouldn't expect one there.
Zapata. Right.
Divine son.
Peter, did you
Sorry,
have a
I
question?
keep talking and people are raising their hands.
No, I just had brought this up in the Discord server in the past. So I had brought in my own interpretation of, what's up with all the Horus classifiers throughout this? Because it seems like there's a whole lot of overusage of those, but I don't know. I think it's just a thing.
Well, it's not Horus, Peter. It's a bird on a stick. First of all.
I'm okay.
I will insist
I was
on my
conflating the two.
ridiculous terminology. No, it is. I mean, it's a falcon on a. It's Horus. It's actually even older than that. It's like the original like Hieraconpolis falcon on a stick standard thing that exists before hieroglyphs even exist. But yeah, you can call it Horus. I'm just messing with you. So yeah, that's in here all over the place. What is it always doing? I mean, sometimes it's very clearly marking something divine. Like at the beginning of this, we have some kind of divine child. So there it's not really, it doesn't really demand any further explanation. Here, I think too, like divine son, that's fine. But here, why are the appearances themselves? The appearances aren't necessarily divine. It's the appearance of a divine thing. And then like here, where just because of, like if you know Egyptian well, you anticipate a pronoun here and there isn't one. Could it be serving the role of the pronoun? I don't see why not. Never heard that before, but I mean, if we assume all that can exist is what we've already seen, then we'll never find anything new. So let's consider it. Let's just keep asking
Spoiler
about
alert.
that.
Spoiler alert.
Mhm.
In line 10, it's actually my hand contrasted with his hand. Basically, Seth speaking about himself and about Horus. And if you look at my hand, it has the bird on a stick.
Yep.
And if you look at his hand, it actually just has an F, a viper. So when it's used as a pronoun, I think it's just as usual. It's the first singular.
Yeah, that usage is definitely well attested too. So it can definitely be used as the first person singular for a divine speaker. But can it be used as the third person singular as in place of F? I don't know that happens, but I don't know that it doesn't happen. So we'll just we'll remain unsure of that until we find enough evidence to decide. Okay, we have 2 minutes left, so I think I'm just gonna stop it there, so I'm not late to our next hieroglyphic class, which starts in exactly 2 minutes. We'll start here next time. The son of Ptah. That kind of continues. There's these, like additional epithets that add on to it. But yeah, so far so good. I mean, we're averaging 1 sentence a week, but I think we'll get faster. We're also talking about.
Will be done.
I mean,
It's
there's
so
different.
fun.
There's different ways to think about it. One way would be like, oh, we're not getting very far in the text. Is that a bad thing? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Another way to think of it is that the text is sort of a pretext for us to sit and talk about. It's like how playing King's Cup, like nobody actually tries to win King's Cup. It's like it's a fake game that you play to get really drunk with your friends, right? So like you can think of it that way. This text is our drinking game. And the real goal is just to learn a lot about ancient Egyptian stuff. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Christian, are you saying we should be drinking during class?
You absolutely can if you want to. I mean, there was one time where one of the students came to class looking like he just took a bong rip before he showed up. He claimed there was an issue with his contacts, but when at the time when it happened, I was like, that's perfectly allowed. You don't have to make excuses. Like you can go to class intoxicated. I mean, I'm not your parent. So yeah, do what you want to do. We're all here to have fun. All right, see y'all soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you.